Hey everybody, so let's do a deep dive on Solana as I had promised earlier to see if the price justifies the fundamentals and technicals of the blockchain and where it could potentially go. Another reminder, this is not an investment advice. Investment is very risky. These are just my thoughts and research on a blockchain. So do with that as you will. Now that we got this out of the way, let's jump right in. So if you've been investing in crypto assets, you've heard of Solana price action to the upside. Let's cover some of these news articles. So Solana price climbed more than 80% in under a month. This is an article from Forbes out of all traditional media. It's interesting to see in traditional media covering crypto assets, let alone Solana specifically. But they highlight how Solana will hit $38. Which at the time of recording this video, it's actually trading somewhere between $59 and $58. But we'll cover that in the later technical section of the video. And this is also another article from CoinGape talking about Solana money flows. We got this article, so it basically highlights that how monies are flowing in. Solana price rallied to $40 imminent as AUM inflows hit 24 million, second only to Bitcoin. So in all crypto assets, one thing is very important, which is money flow. Money flow will determine the performance of the assets, and this clearly shows where most of the money is coming in across all crypto assets. And that's actually Solana, and I think second only to Bitcoin. So this is also another report by the CCD that kind of outlines money flow. This chart outlines money flow into crypto assets. It's actually a better picture to kind of shows you where supports the fundamentals for Solana and Atom and Bitcoin in comparison to all the other altcoins that are there. As you can see, actually Matic losing, Algorand losing, BNB losing because whatever they have going on with SEC and Gary Gensler and interest rates, and there's a little bit of FUD going on there too. But anyways, we'll cover that some other time. This comes in as Solana is actually developing their ecosystem. Their most recent development was the Solana backpack. There's a lot of new development in Solana ecosystem, and the fact that they've got this new crypto assets, or they got this new crypto exchange actually that are launched in Dubai. What's actually even more important is that it's licensed and regulated. So this only adds to the credibility of the space and prevents rug pull projects and scams that are clearly very prevalent in crypto space specifically. So it's a new class. It's a new class of assets. So things like that do happen as they mature over time. It filters them out, and all these crypto exchanges, there are scam coins and things like that. They kind of go out the space, and the space matures over time. And this is regulated in Dubai, so that's nice. And actually, good on Dubai taking the leadership in the space. We thought that US would be the one, but Gary and Jerome Powell's have other things in mind. But let's not divert on other topics. So Solana and institutional investors. Solana is up 260% year to date as institutional investor big bet on Solana investment products. This also research put together by CCD that outlines how big institutional investors are flocking into this space, something that Raul Paul has used to earlier, basically highlighting that there's big money coming in, and he was actually one of the guys that are big bet on Solana as well. Raul Paul is actually Goldman Sachs investor for those of you who don't know. He's a banker with Goldman Sachs for a long time, and he has his own channels and big investment firms that he's working under right now. Basically, you talk about why some of these things are big investors are flocking into Solana, and why so much AUM are coming in monthly into the space. And they talk specifically about FireDancer, right? So what is FireDancer? FireDancer is actually a validator client that will enable Solana to do 1 million TPS, which is truly revolutionary for the space. And it's understandable why the institutional investors are flocking into the space, and Solana in particular. So, for example, this upgrade, Firedance, which is still in beta phase, it's supposed to be released actually in 2024. But this will truly be a game changer for this space because Solana can be the first blockchain that will be adopted by the masses. And this highlighted here actually in this video by Raul Paul. So let's actually hear from horse's mouth himself.
I hadn't even heard about it, but I went to mainnet and there's Colleen from Brevin Howard, who's a good friend and an amazing person. She was on stage and she was like, and yeah, fire dancer, that's obviously a big bet that we've got that we think is really important. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, Colleen, but she knows a lot of stuff I don't know. So I'm like, okay, fine. And then Anatoly comes up and he's speaking and he starts talking about fire dancer and, oh yeah, we think it can do 600,000 to 1.2 million TPS. And that I'm like, what? And I was thinking at the time, maybe it's some sort of layer 2, blah, 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 compromise. So I went back home. I was looking at the charts, which I have been for a long time, of Solana versus ETH and Solana versus Bitcoin. I'm like, this looks like a fucking rocket ship. What is going on here? And so I started looking in and watching the interviews with the Jump trading team who built FireDance and realized it was a separate validator for ETH actually, for Solana that actually increases the security of the entire chain itself. And that, yes, these speeds were right because it was being built by people who were trying to build light speed for high frequency trading.
This is also another article by Masari. They do this research and they put out this thing about the fire dancer, how this could be the blue ocean. So what they're trying to highlight is that the fire dancer would give Solana the ability to have the best chance to be adopted by the masses of all the blockchain users, actually, because it has the ability to process the most transaction, the cheapest, and the fastest horse will win. So wait till you actually see some of the average prices per transaction in comparison. So this slide really paints a good picture as to why Solana could outperform almost all of these altcoins this bull run. So you can see Solana can currently do 65 to 50,000 to 65,000 transactions per second, which is far outpaces pretty much everything that's on there. The one thing that's coming even closer that would be like Avalanche that can do 4,500, but that's no match. And as you can see, their transactions per fee per transaction as well. That's 0.0025 compared to Ethereum being anywhere between $4 to $21 or ADA being $0.50 to 75 cents or 77 cents and Avalanche and Polkadot and all that. Algorand is not that bad either, but Algorand doesn't have the ability to scale up to being able to process the same amount of transactions that Solana can, especially after the implementation of the Fire Dancer, which is actually coming in 2024. Pretty sure. So it's interesting to see that all these crypto assets have been able to perform the way they have in the face of all these rate hikes. I don't know what Jerome Powell is going to do next, if they're going to raise rates, but I don't think they have the ability to raise rates much longer. So we'll see. But if they raise the interest rates much higher, then it's a risk for all crypto assets and all risk assets, not just crypto. And the stock market and everything could potentially tank, but I don't think he's going to do that. But we'll see. I digress. And I think this graph right here puts one of the main concerns kind of into bed as far as the energy consumption of Solana is concerned in comparison to some of the other blockchains or some of the things that we're actually familiar with. For example, like a Google search or an hour of using an LED light bulb or fully charging an iPhone battery, as you could read through the rest. So I think that's a great. It's a great chart that kind of explains why Solana is able to put to bed some of the ESG concerns that any ETF or funds might have going further down the line, which I think perfectly segues into like Van Eyck's price target, right? So as I had promised you guys, Van Eyck came up with this target for Solana by 2035 or 2030, actually. They're projecting that the valuation for the SOL price would be anywhere, for a bearish case, of course, 981, which is what we just came from, and I think to a bullish case of $3,211. And I'll just link that article. If you have time, you can read through that article as to how to reach that conclusion. But I think just the fundamentals that we just discussed kind of make the case for that. But in case if you just want to read it for yourself, I'll go ahead and link that into the description and you can go through that as well. This is an interesting article that was on CNBC saying the Solana jumps on Visa stablecoin announcement as Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies remain flat. So this is basically highlights their partnerships with Visa. They have new partnership with Shopify and other merchants. So these are all parts of the fundamental case to be made for Solana. And then we can go ahead and actually take a look at some of the charts. So before we can talk about Solana, let's actually take a look at Bitcoin chart, and that will give us an idea how the rest of the crypto assets are going to function. Because remember, Bitcoin leads the crypto assets, and whatever Bitcoin does, the rest of the altcoins replicate that move magnified either to the upside or to the downside. So we've been trading in this range for the past few days, and every time we've gotten to the top of that range, we've had a pullback. So that's like pullback number one, number two, three, four, and five as we speak. What I see are the two possible scenarios that are going to play out. Scenario number one, we are going to trade side range. And then ultimately, if we get an ETF news, we're going to push up and break the top of that range, right? Scenario number two, if the Federal Reserve raised the interest rates by either 50 basis point or 100 basis point, and the ETF gets rejected at the same time, then I do see us pretty much going down all the way to the bottom of that range. Both cases, so scenario number one is a sustained move. I think that's a good idea. It'll be a much sustained move over a long period of time. Scenario number two, less likely, but if it does happen for the long term breadth of the market or the crypto assets, it would not necessarily be a bad move to kind of test the bottom of their range, bring in all the people that have missed out on the rally, participate, and trade up back to the top of that range or ultimately break above that. So now looking at yearly chart for Solana, as you can see, we had a huge pullback from the top of that bull market. It's like 96, 97% pullback, right? Let me see. That's 96% pullback all the way down to like $9.82. Now, for the past few months, we traded sideways in that range and finally broke out of this resistance at $32 that's been in place for a while. The one thing to keep in mind is that your 200 and your 50-day moving averages are a very good indicator to kind of determine where the trend is. And every time the 200-day moving average crosses over the 50 EMA, it is a trend change, right? So it's a good idea. May not necessarily get you out of the top at a perfect time, but it will save you a lot of pain. And we're recently seeing that 50 days actually crossed over the 200 moving average, which is a very nice bullish sign, followed by a really nice volume. So it's definitely a good indicator and a good trend change to keep in mind. And now we do have some resistance that are coming up, but I do feel like we're going to test that 75, 76 area as your target number one. And then ultimately, I ultimately think that honestly 140 by end of 2024 or somewhere at the beginning of 2025 or even 265, that's well within the ranges. You see most analysts do expect that Solana will hit all-time highs and even actually surpass that. Some targets are pretty insane that I can't even believe, but there's definitely potential, and the fundamentals kind of make a nice bull case for that, right? So looking at a 4-hour chart, if you feel like you've missed out the move, we've had this trend in place that every time we have traded the bottom of that trend, we have bounced off of it really nice with good volume. So risk to reward ratio is not a bad idea to get in right at that trend. And every time, if you do break out that trend, and then that invalidates the trend, and then we could see a potential move down to that 46.94. And if the scenario number two plays out and things get really bad, then I do think that we could potentially test that 32 as the support. There's been a previous resistance for a very long time. So that'd be a really good support move to buy off of, which I hope it does happen because then I can get back in, and it'll also be good for a long sustained move, right? So sometimes whenever you have like a huge parabolic moves, there's a high likelihood that you're going to have a huge pullbacks. So if you want a nice sustained move over long periods of time, it's not a bad idea to kind of trend sideways, get more volume in, and make sure your RSIs are all cooled off and it's confirmed by both fundamentals and technicals, and then you have a nice sustained move over a long period of time. So if you guys do have any questions about either Solana chart or Bitcoin chart or any of the fundamentals, please do leave a comment below and I'll do get my best to get back to you. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. All right. Thanks, everybody.